So, yeah, I'm 28F and I work in corporate finance at a mid sized firm. Basically, long hours, too much coffee, and a constant game of who's kissing up to who. When I first joined fresh out of grad school, I was like every other overachiever, hungry, ambitious, and ready to prove myself. Fast forward 4 years, and I'd quietly become the person people came to when they wanted something done right. But officially, the credit almost always went to my boss, Richard. Richard's in his 40s, has that used car salesman energy, and always smirks like he knows a secret. Spoiler, he doesn't. He wears flashy suits, talks too loud about golf, and somehow convinces people he's leading the team, when in reality, the guy barely shows up on time. I wish I was exaggerating. He'd roll into meetings 10 minutes late, interrupt people, then take off at 4:30 like it was a race. If there was an Olympic sport for slacking, this man would have brought home gold. The only thing he truly excelled at? Taking credit for my work. At first, I brushed it off. I figured, okay, this is just paying my dues. Like, everyone has a crappy boss story, right? Eventually, people will notice. Except, eventually came and went. By year 3, I realized Richard wasn't just annoying. He was actively holding me back. Every time I spoke up in meetings, he'd cut me off. Like clockwork. I'd say something like, if we restructure the budget, we can save about $200,000 annually. And Richard, without missing a beat, would go, what she's trying to say is, and then literally repeat my sentence like it was his idea. And people nodded. Like, yes, Richard. Such vision. Much wow. I did a whole client account report once. Days of work, spreadsheets, cross-checking numbers. Richard skimmed it for maybe 5 minutes, slapped his name on it, and emailed it to the VP. When the VP congratulated him, Richard had the audacity to say, yeah, I put in some late nights on this one. Late nights? The man left before traffic even started. I was the one sitting there with cold takeout and eye bags. I confronted him once, kind of timidly, like, hey, I noticed my name wasn't on the Q3 report. He just smirked and went, don't worry, I'll make sure you get visibility when the timing's right. Yeah, that timing never showed up. By year 4, I was done. Burnt out, tired, and carrying the department while Richard was out practicing his golf swing. Then finally, a senior manager role opened up. My chance. My performance reviews were stellar. HR literally hinted I should apply. My coworkers were like, you'd crush this. So when Richard called me into his office, I thought he was going to at least give me the corporate good luck. Nope. He leans back in his chair, does that stupid fingers behind his head pose, and goes, look, you're talented, no doubt. But leadership? You're still too young, too emotional, not ready to manage people yet. You should wait your turn. My jaw was basically on the floor. Emotional? Bro, you almost cried last week when the coffee machine broke. 2 weeks later, he nominated himself for the promotion. I told myself, fine. If he wants to compete, I'll let my work speak louder. But then I found out the real kicker. Through a coworker friend in another department, I learned Richard had been emailing upper management and blaming his screw-ups on me. Like, deliberately making me look incompetent to set himself up as the safe choice. That's when the game changed. That's when I stopped playing nice. I started keeping receipts. Every email, every project file, every single thing I created that he tried to pass off as his. If he wanted to play dirty, cool. Two can play that game. So once I realized Richard was actually trying to tank my career, oh, it was game on. I started documenting everything. And I mean everything. Every email, every message, every little, oops, can you fix this for me? Moment. My desktop looked like one giant FBI folder. If you sneezed in my department, trust me, I had it timestamped. And honestly, it was kind of fun. Like, petty fun. Because every time Richard sent me one of his little fix this by EOD emails, I'd smile and think, thanks for the evidence, buddy. The wildest part? Once I started paying attention, I realized just how bad he was. He'd literally forward client emails to me with "handle this" written at the top, and then later brag in meetings about how he resolved the issue. So yeah, screenshotted that. He'd also forget to CC me when sending updates to upper management, but joke with coworkers about how I was still learning the ropes. Yep, save those too. I wasn't just doing my job at this point, I was basically building a case file, like some true crime docuseries titled How Richard Buried Himself in Real Time. The real showdown was the promotion process. Part of it required candidates to present a 5-year strategic plan to the executive board. Basically, show us your vision, and maybe we'll give you the corner office. Of course, Richard asked me to make his slides, because why wouldn't he? I'd been doing his grunt work for years, but this time I didn't just hand him my best work. Oh no, I created 2 versions. The one I gave him looked professional on the surface, but I deliberately laced it with subtle mistakes. Old data, slightly off projections, awkward formatting. Nothing too obvious, just enough to trip him up if he hadn't actually done the research himself. The one I kept for me? Perfect. Clean, polished, bulletproof. I saved both under innocent file names on the shared drive. Richard grabbed the one labeled Final without a second thought. So the big day rolls around. Executives in suits, long table, fancy coffee cups, basically Shark Tank without the lights. Richard goes first. He strides up there all confident, rocking his $700 suit and fake grin. And within 2 slides, he's sweating. The numbers don't add up. The projections are all over the place. One exec literally interrupted and went, "Wait, where are you getting these figures?" I swear I could see the panic rising up his neck like a thermometer. He stuttered, tried to BS through it, flipped slides too fast. It was chef's kiss. Then it was my turn. I walked up, opened my flawless deck, and started talking. Calm, confident, like I'd been prepping for months. Because I had. Every stat was airtight. Every chart made sense, every point tied back to the company's goals. And the best part? The execs were eating it up. Nodding, smiling, asking follow-up questions like they were actually impressed. Meanwhile, Richard? He sat there looking like he just watched his dog run away with his last dollar. When I finished, there was this little pause in the room. Then the CEO literally said, "Well, that was a stark contrast." I had to bite my tongue not to smirk. The second I wrapped up my presentation, I knew the vibe in that room had flipped. The execs were nodding, taking notes, even interrupting me with follow-up questions. Not to poke holes, but because they were actually interested. Meanwhile, Richard was sitting there looking like someone unplugged his brain. I could literally hear his pen clicking nonstop, like he was trying to disappear into the chair. When I sat back down, the CEO gave me this tiny smile and said, "Thank you. That was exactly the level of clarity we were looking for." Translation. And whatever Richard just did, that ain't it. After the meeting, Richard stormed past me without a word. Didn't even look at me. I should have been nervous, but honestly, it was hilarious. Dude looked like a balloon losing air. That afternoon, HR requested a quick chat with me. Which, corporate speak for we're onto something and need receipts. So I showed them my little evidence collection. Emails, reports, timestamps, the works. I wasn't petty. I didn't go digging for his coffee breaks or anything. I just laid out a clear trail. Here's my work. Here's how he passed it off. Here's where he tried to blame me for his mistakes. The HR manager's eyebrows were basically in orbit by the time I was done. She said, "This is thorough." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a finance analyst. Being thorough is literally my job." Here's the thing about people like Richard. When they feel cornered, they double down instead of owning up. The very next day, he called an emergency team meeting. He strutted in like he hadn't just face-planted in front of the entire exec board and started rambling about how we needed to align better moving forward. Translation. Please pretend I didn't just humiliate myself and maybe no one will notice. But my coworkers? Oh, they noticed. You could feel the shift in the room. People who used to laugh at his corny jokes weren't even making eye contact. A couple of them even looked at me like, wait, are you the reason yesterday wasn't a total disaster? About a week later, Richard's title quietly changed in the company directory. He was no longer department head. Suddenly, he was just project advisor. No announcement, no cake in the break room, nothing. Just demoted. HR framed it as a strategic restructuring, but come on. Everyone knew what happened. And me? I got called into another meeting, this time with the executives. They didn't hand me the promotion on the spot. Corporate loves to drag things out. But they made it very clear they were impressed. One VP literally said, "We need more people who can deliver like that." Which, in corporate language, is basically a wink-wink, nudge-nudge. Of course, Richard wasn't going to go down without at least one more slimy attempt. A few days later, he tried to mentor me. I'm not kidding. He cornered me in the hallway and said, "Hey, listen, I know I've been hard on you, but I think with my guidance, you could really grow into this role." Sir, you just tanked your own career in front of the board. The only thing you're guiding is your resume to Indeed.com. I just smiled and said, "Appreciate the offer, but I think I'm doing okay." A couple weeks after the big board meeting, I got the email. The one with the subject line that made my stomach drop. Promotion decision, congratulations. I swear I reread it 5 times just to make sure my brain wasn't filling in words I wanted to see. But nope, it was real. I got the senior manager role. My own office, my own team, my own budget. Basically, everything Richard swore I wasn't ready for. Walking into work that Monday hit different. Coworkers who used to just wave at me were suddenly stopping by my desk, saying stuff like, "Honestly, you deserved this more than anyone." One even whispered, "I've been waiting for someone to finally put Richard in his place." It was like everyone had been silently suffering under him, and now they finally had someone to root for. I wasn't just the new manager, I was basically the office's main character for a week. Not gonna lie, I enjoyed it. Richard? Oh, he did not take it well. At first, he pretended like he was totally fine. You know, fake smile, congrats champ energy. But it lasted about 2 seconds before the cracks showed. He stopped coming to meetings on time. He'd sit in the back, arms crossed, making faces while I spoke. One time, he actually muttered something under his breath, and a VP shut him down with, "Do you have something useful to add?" The man looked like he swallowed a lemon. Of course, office gossip exploded. People started making little jokes like, "Hey, Richard, want me to proof your slides?" Or they'd accidentally ask me questions in meetings that were technically in his new job description, not mine. I didn't encourage it, but I didn't exactly stop it either. Let's just say I was sipping my tea quietly while karma did her thing. The real kicker was when Richard tried to spin his demotion as a personal choice. He told anyone who'd listen that he wanted to scale back and focus on project advising. Yeah, sure, buddy. Totally your idea to give up a leadership role for a half-salary consolation prize. But no one bought it. Especially not after he showed up late 3 days in a row and got called out by HR for attendance concerns. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash. Painful, but also kind of satisfying. Meanwhile, I was thriving. For the first time, my ideas were getting taken seriously because they actually had my name on them. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the assistant or the junior or the emotional one. I was the boss. And honestly, I was good at it. I made sure to uplift my team, give them credit where it was due, and actually listen in meetings. Radical concept, right? The department started running smoother within weeks. Deadlines were met. Clients were happier. The vibe was lighter. Funny how that works when the dead weight gets removed. It didn't take long for Richard to completely unravel. After a couple more months of phoning it in, he stopped pretending altogether. He'd miss entire days without warning, make snide comments in meetings, and one time I caught him scrolling Zillow during a client call. HR called him in. Again. This time, he didn't come back. Word spread fast. Richard had resigned to pursue other opportunities. which is corporate speak for we gave him the choice between quitting or getting canned. And just like that, the man who once tried to tank my career was gone. No fanfare, no goodbye party, not even a mass email. He just vanished. Of course, office gossip filled in the blanks. A coworker swore they saw him updating his LinkedIn with some made-up consulting title. Another said he landed at a tiny firm across town, basically starting over from scratch. Honestly, I didn't even care. For once, his mess wasn't my problem. Meanwhile, I thrived. My team respected me, clients actually knew my name, and I finally felt like I had control over my own career. It wasn't always easy. Being the boss meant learning to deal with way more responsibility. But at least it was my responsibility, not me cleaning up after some guy who couldn't open Excel without breaking it. And yeah, I made mistakes. But they were my mistakes, and I owned them. Huge difference. Sometimes I think back to that conversation in Richard's office, him telling me I was too young and too emotional. Funny how the emotional one ended up running the department while the seasoned leader is probably out there arguing with Indeed's resume uploader. The lesson? Don't let someone convince you you're less than you are just because they're scared of being outshined. People like Richard thrive on keeping others small. But the second you stop playing along and start keeping receipts, game over. So yeah, my boss tried to ruin my career. He sabotaged, he lied, he threw me under the bus. But in the end, he buried himself. And me? I got the promotion he swore I wasn't ready for. Sometimes karma doesn't take years. Sometimes it just takes one really bad PowerPoint presentation.